Okay, so welcome everybody to Master Bulletproof Systems to free up time and beat burnout. Before we get started, I want to share a quick story about something that happened to me some years ago that really kind of points towards what the whole purpose of today's webinar really is. It was probably like 2016 or so, somewhere around there. It was the very first year that Intuit did their VIP summit, and I had gotten an email from a friend of mine saying, "Hey, I heard you didn't RSVP to the VIP summit." I had no idea what they were talking about. And I said, "I have no idea what it is." And the person responded to me and explained very sort of cursory, that it was an event. They were inviting some people to come to Mountain View to their headquarters, and they wanted to talk about things they were doing and planning and so on and so forth. And my immediate thought was, well, I'm probably gonna have to spend money and go get a hotel room and pay for airfare and all this. And I'm like, and I'd rather be here making money instead of spending it. So on that very, sort of conjectured basis, I said, I'm out. And then I get an email from somebody from Intuit saying, "Hey, I understand that you're declining to come to the VIP summit. We'd really like you there. And, please, if you change your mind, let us know," kind of thing. And so then I thought, okay, they seem to really want me there. Like now I'm kind of flattered. Like it wasn't really just some blanket thing, like a bunch of people invited. Like they really seemed to specifically want me there, among others, of course. And so long story short, they had sent an email out, and I vaguely remembered seeing the email and thinking the same thing, that I was like a little conference and I didn't want to be bothered with it. So I asked her to resend it to me so I could look at it. And, frankly, it said all expenses paid. They pay airfare, hotel. Like they really just wanted us there, bring us together to, to participate in this thing that eventually became a big thing. And really, the moral of the story is I almost missed it because it was in an email, buried in a sea of emails that I didn't at the time really have any kind of a system for how to even bookmark something like that, to read it later, to take the time to pay attention and understand what it is. And that would have meant missing something very important. It was only because I'm lucky that I had good friends, both at Intuit and in the community around it, who reached out to me. It very easily could have gone another way where I would have completely missed out on what turned out to be an amazing opportunity. It was an honor, to be invited to such a thing. And it would have been a real shame if I had passed it up. So, all of that is to say, like, if something like that happened today, there's no way I would miss it because I've got the systems that I need to make sure that anything, including my sea of emails that I have to wade through every day, gets earmarked so that I can read things later and bookmark things and tag things in a way that I know I'm not going to miss anything that's important. Right. And just real quick, because we love our statistics, right? And remember that 85% of all statistics are made up. I kid, but I did actually Google this, and it turns out research by McKinsey and Company. Hopefully, you're familiar with them. If not, Google them. You'll find out quickly. They're one of the most well-known research companies out there. So, according to research that they've conducted, organizations with clearly defined SOPs outperform their competitors by 31%. SOPs not only streamline processes, but also ensure consistency and quality control across all levels of an organization, empowering business to expand confidently while maintaining control. So, all of that is just some food for thought as I dive into today's material. And now I want to just talk quickly about who this is for. Okay, this is for accountants and bookkeepers who need better or any systems, right? I talked to a lot of you. You're going to hear me mention 97 and up throughout this webinar. And in 97 and up, I talked to a lot of people who, some of them will admit to me, look, I really have no systems. One in particular, a guy I've known for many, many years, a year or so ago, admitted to me that he was constantly on the scavenger hunt. He would, create a spreadsheet to do some kind of an analysis for a client, but he wouldn't name them well by his own admission. And then it was the scavenger hunt. It was a squirrel trying to find the nut that he buried the next season, and he could never find what he was looking for. He has this just sea of Google Sheet spreadsheets that he had created, but couldn't make any sense of it, right? So think about it this way. If your business couldn't run without you for even a day, this is for you. When you have good systems, you should be able to walk away from that business and it can run fine without you. You should be able to take a vacation without being stressed out about what you're going to come back to. And we'll talk more about that a little later on. So if you know you need to write up SOPs so you can hire someone and turn it over to them, this is for you. If you often find yourself overwhelmed and constantly firefighting, this is for you. If you struggle to balance client work and personal time, this is definitely for you, right? Now, who is this not for? It's not for you if, and get ready for the reverse psychology, right? This is marketing 101, but I have fun doing this kind of stuff. So it's not for you if you have the perfect systems and you never fall behind on anything. It's not for you if you believe you don't need any help or improvement. It's not for anyone who enjoys working 24/7 and never feels burnout. And it's not for those who think creating SOPs is a waste of time, right? So here's what we're going to do in the next 45 minutes or so. I'll teach you about Bulletproof SOPs and show you why it's the best way to achieve freedom and scale your business. I'll show you how to get started writing SOPs, even if you're a beginner. I'll also show you a massive shortcut slash secret that you can use to get results faster and experience results immediately with your SOPs. I'll break down my entire Bulletproof SOP blueprint strategy for you step by step, and I'll give you a simple roadmap you can follow. And I'll show you how accountants and bookkeepers, just like you, are using SOPs to build a business you can sell. Even if you don't think you ever want to sell your business, I promise you there's no harm in building it along those lines. And then you have the choice, right? And the same goes for if you want to sort of groom somebody to take it over, like an employee or a child, right? So real quick, because there's a lot of people here that I don't know how well all of you know me. A lot of you I recognize, but there's quite a few names here that I don't. I see Caleb Jenkins. Hey, Caleb, nice to see you in the chat. Caroline, Tiffany, I hope I pronounced that right. Anyway, who am I? In case you don't know, I am Seth David, founder of Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, with over 20 years of experience in accounting and business consulting. And, it's funny, I say this, and as I'm reading that, I'm like, I wrote that. I normally never bother with something like that because my first thought is, who cares how much experience you have? What really counts is, what you can deliver. And if you read my email from this week, that's what I'm really excited about today is not so much even the number of people who were registered for this, which is a lot, and the number of people who are here live, which is a lot. What I'm most excited about is potential, the potential that I can show you, the kind of potential that you can hopefully at the end of this hour see in yourself and what you can accomplish, right? But anyway, I mention it, I guess, to help prove that I might know a little something about what I'm doing, right? 20 years experience. I specialize in helping businesses streamline their operations and boost productivity. My passion is leveraging technology, especially Notion, as most of you probably know by now, to create bulletproof systems that simplify complex processes and empower professionals to achieve more with less effort. And this is the kind of stuff we talk about, by the way, in 97 Up all week long. We have 2 weekly calls and an active Slack workspace where you can ask for help with anything like writing SOPs. We've done a number of calls on that this year, and we're going to do more. In fact, today's webinar is going to run a lot like one of our twice weekly calls, right? So if you like what you see, stick around at the end because I'm going to give you a chance to save a lot of money with 97 and up in case you happen to be interested in that. If not, I promise you, you're going to walk away with plenty of value today without having to sign up or pay for anything, okay? That's a little bit about me. There's my 97 and up logo and my Nerd Enterprises logo, right? And a little bit more about me. I am the creator of the Bulletproof Bookkeeping Experience, which is based on the courses that I created that are based on my experience as an auditor and how to make sure that when you put a set of books together, you can prove every single number on the balance sheet and P&L. I'm also known for being a dog dad to the mighty goddesses. There they are. They're really my vice presidents of marketing in this company. Right. And as I just recently alluded to, I am also the creator of the Bulletproof Notion experience, which is the operating system that I've built. And you're going to see a lot of that reflected in today's presentation in terms of how I've got the SOPs that we're going to talk about organized and categorized and easily referenced, which underscores really what this kind of operating system is all about. So, questions. Does any of this sound like you? Do you feel like lack of organization, clear direction, and general lack of clarity is holding you back? Is this problem causing stress and overwhelm? Are you losing sleep? Right? No shame in admitting that. I will admit that at times I have lost sleep over feeling behind and not clear on what I need to do next. Right? Are you scared that you'd lose clients if you don't figure out how to clarify, organize, and catch up? Right? Have you tried on your own, but maybe you're still stuck and feeling like you haven't made much progress, towards more time and 100% energy? Have you been told that writing SOPs is overkill for a business your size, but you feel like something's missing or that there must be a better way? That's classic. True story. Right before this webinar, my wife asked me the question, like, she asked me the question, who is this for? She says, doesn't every business have to have that? And I said, no, a lot of businesses are very small and don't think they need this kind of thing until you actually start doing it and you realize how much more efficient it makes you when you have just a clearly laid out process. Like I'm going to go do something that I can typically do in my sleep, like reconciling bank statements, let's say, but with a step-by-step process that I can follow along, even though I know it so cold, it still makes a difference. It still makes me more efficient to have something in front of me, a checklist that I can look at and say, all right, I've made sure that I've done each of these things, check them off. I can move on. So now I not only move on, but I move on with confidence that there's very, very little, if any chance that I've missed a single thing. There's no stone unturned, so to speak, right? And you've heard stories of people who I see it all the time online, right? Where people talk about how they seem to have achieved like massive scale effortlessly because they have great systems. A lot of people I've known over many years have admitted that the reason they were able to sell their businesses, going back to something I mentioned earlier, was that the buyers of their businesses weren't really buying the business, they were buying the SOPs that they had developed for their business because they were so, so good. Okay. So, a little bit of good news, right, is you're not crazy, lazy, or stupid. I can promise you that. If you're here, I'm sure you're very, very smart. So it's not that. But you've probably just been following bad advice or outdated advice from well-meaning people. And what you've tried mostly doesn't or likely doesn't work very well to achieve the freedom you need to work on your business instead of in it. Or maybe you haven't been following any advice at all on this and you just needed that nudge that I'm giving you today. Okay. Um, More good news. With the right approach, you can get the free time you need so you can scale your business, reduce stress, and enjoy more time with the people you love, right? Or work more if that's what you prefer to do. And I'm going to show you exactly what that method is and how you can start getting results with it fast. Okay. Now, I've got some bad news for people who like bad news, right? You know a lot more than you think. There's a lot more swimming around in your head than you realize until you actually sit down and get the stuff out of your head and onto either a piece of paper or a digital page, right? And when you sit down and begin to write out the steps of a process you regularly perform, the act of slowing down to write these steps will force you to confront just how brilliant you actually are. Okay. And with the right approach, you can write your SOPs with a level of attention to detail that will enable you to clone yourself, which is something I know you often joke about wishing you could do. And I'm going to show you exactly what that method is and how you can start getting results with it fast. I feel like I'm repeating myself here. What I really want to say here, forget about my little script or whatever I have, is I'm going to show you how you can actually get out of your own way, which is another way of saying clone yourself. Okay. So now I want to do something here. It's very Los Angeles of me. I want to do some visualizing with you before we dive into the real meat of the day. And let me just check real quick. Pam says, or take on more clients. Yes, definitely. I don't see anything in the Q&A. Let me just pull that up. So no questions so far. And just feel free to keep going in that chat. All right, and Mary, you'll just let me know, interrupt me if there are any questions. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Fast forward 12 months, and I want you to imagine where you want to be in 12 months from now, right? So we're not talking about the end of this year. I mean a year from now, this time next year. And really close your eyes and picture it, right? For me, I'll share my version of this, at least one of them, is for me, it's waking up early in the morning in a cabin on a lake, enjoying a hot cup of coffee and writing with a view. I love to write. Many of you who know me know this, and that's been a dream of mine for a while now, is just waking up by a cabin and having that inspired view, which will help me write even more or better or more inspired, right? And then imagine the positive ripple effects that this might have on your life. And I want you to really think 360 degrees here. The happiness you would experience seeing yourself achieve what you've wanted to for so long, right? For me, again, I'm at that cabin, of course, with my wife and the mighty goddesses, whom you saw earlier, and we're relaxing, laughing, generally celebrating life. All the years of hard work are now paying off. And we also aren't worried about what we're going to come back to, right? We're not worried about how we're going to pay the bills. In fact, there's no coming back to. There's really just moving forward because I can do this from anywhere, just like you can do what you do from anywhere. So isn't it time we started living this life? Finally, imagine how else this might impact not just your life, but the lives of the people around you, right? The people who would love to have more time with you. Having well written, really well written SOPs, you can literally clone yourself, like I said, get out of your own way, and have this life by delegating work reliably to others. And to pull a page or two out of Ron Baker and Paul Dunn's Time's Up book, your job as the principal of your firm is to manufacture demand. In turn, the people you hire have the job of manufacturing supply. Okay. I'm going to let that sit with you for a few minutes because it's really important. Basic economics, supply and demand, but putting yourself in the right role here is so key. And this is what having really well written SOPs are going to do, because as I just mentioned, they're going to enable you to hire somebody that you can hand that SOP to. And sure, you'll probably want to do some training with them, but most of the job should be taken care of by that SOP. Maybe they'll need to ask you a few questions to clarify or clear some things up, right? So I'm going to repeat that. Your job as the principal of your firm is to manufacture demand. That means you go out there and get the clients that you want, right? Not just any client, but selective clients that you want, the people you really want to work with. And in turn, the people you hire have the job of manufacturing supply. The problem a lot of firms are facing, and this is just based on the feedback I get from a lot of you, is as follows. If you are in a situation where you have lots of supply because, or let's put it this way, let's say you're up to your eyeballs on work because you have so much work to do, and it could be a number of factors, better sort of project management systems, also better pricing, right? It's a sure sign if you're overwhelmed that you may not be charging enough, right? Maybe you need to charge more, lose a few clients, right? But get paid the same or more with less work to do, those kinds of things. The bottom line of what that all translates to, the situation that a lot of you may actually be in, is where you could never manufacture enough demand to keep up with your supply because of the way that you've very naturally and organically built your firms. So it's time to think about it a little differently. And it's time to start doing things that will help you, get out of the trenches, get into running the business, and create an environment where your business can scale without you having to be in the trenches all day, every day, right? That shouldn't be your role, especially if you've got a firm that's been around for a few years. In the beginning, of course, you have to wear all the hats, right? But there should be a plan in place from day one that's designed to get you out of that little by little. Okay. And if you don't get out of your own way so that you can build accordingly, then, like I said, what you have is a situation where you can never generate enough demand to meet the supply. And that's why you're up to your eyeballs in work. You can never keep up, and you definitely aren't getting paid enough for all the energy you are expending. Notice I didn't say time, right? Time is irrelevant. Time is precious, but it's irrelevant to this. We don't get paid for our time. We get paid for our outcomes. We get paid for what we can produce for the clients. We get paid for for the potential that we can expose our clients to and how we can transform our clients over a given period of time, right? So this is where you get to challenge all of that. Okay. So think about that. And that visualization I just asked you to do is more important. You might think it's silly, but I promise you it's not. What I really want you to do with that right now is make a quick note somewhere. And I want you to get like obsessed with that vision. Every day when you wake up, the first thing you should do is read something that you've written that describes that vision to remind yourself, this is what I need to focus on. This is what I need to produce in the big picture. And then you can ask yourself throughout the day, is what I'm doing right now moving me in that direction, or isn't it? I can tell you that incorporating a process like this into my daily life has made a huge difference in terms of my ability to stay focused on what really matters and avoid distractions that take me away from being productive in the ways that I most want to be, right? So think about how your life, your business career, your overall happiness will change if and when you can achieve that image, that vision that you have for the life that you really want. Very, very important stuff. Okay, so now let's talk Bulletproof SOPs. Again, they can help you clone yourself and free up your time. And I'm confident that it'll work better than anything else you've tried if you do it properly. That's an important qualifier right there. If you do it properly. And again, either you've tried doing this and you weren't detailed enough, or you've been winging it by relying on what's in your head and then training anyone you've brought in to help. That's the opposite of having an SOP. That's an anti-system, right? That's you relying on what's in your head organically. And bottom line, if you read a book like Getting Things Done, one of the key takeaways that you'll learn from reading a book like that is the more stuff you keep in your head, the more stress it's causing you, which reduces your ability to focus, and it frankly diminishes your ability to be disciplined, because you're just stressed out all the time worrying about all the stuff that is in your head that you haven't taken the time to clarify, right? Organize, reflect, or engage. You're just kind of winging it, like I said, right? And the biggest danger right now is that you can't even conceive of hiring help, even though you need it, because you don't have time to train somebody. Okay. So a bulletproof SOP will fix all of this. The difference between what I'm calling a bulletproof SOP versus, other SOPs is in the level of attention to detail. And as with anything bulletproof, it means you've got to invest more time one time upfront to free up a whole lot more time afterwards. Okay. So the best part about this is, and it's not going to sound, this is going to sound sort of contrary to what I've probably built you up to so far. It actually is easy. Okay. It doesn't mean there's not work to do, but writing an SOP it's not rocket science. Like I said earlier, you're a lot more brilliant than you probably give yourself credit for. And a lot of the information you need is already in your mind. Okay. And so we just have to get it out of your mind and into a system you can trust, right? That's really one of the keys. So the first step is to take inventory. Now, when I say take inventory, you're probably thinking of your clients that keep inventory in a warehouse somewhere, right? This is a different kind of inventory. Okay. I want you to make a list of every SOP you can think of off the top of your head that you need to write, every process that you need to perform every week, every month, every quarter, right? Once a year, twice a year, at year end. All of these time frames can be representative of a different almost list of SOPs that you will want outlined at the most granular possible level of detail. So a big part of the battle is just getting that list right out here in front of you. And I promised you all ahead of time that I was going to give you some templates. Okay. And here they are. So at the end of this webinar, and also as a follow-up for anybody who's registered, I'm going to send you an email to show you how to get access to this. So this is by no means exhaustive, but it covers a lot of the bases at a high level, at least for most accounting and bookkeeping firms in terms of the SOPs that let's put it this way, at least it's a very solid starting point for you in getting the list out there. Okay. Now, once you have this list, and feel free to swipe these from me, and then you need to reorder them and prioritize which thing do I need to do first, right? And there's no pat answer to that, right? You can look at this a number of different ways, but this is what I'm talking about when I use a word like clarify, right? So clarify meaning I have to decide how am I going to prioritize this? So the first thing I might choose, it might be based on what's going to save me the most time, right? That's what I would opt for if I were doing this now from scratch, is I would think which of these processes is going to save me the most time first. And that's the one I would start building out. The other one might be timeline order, right? Maybe you just have a very kind of linear thinking kind of brain. Many of us do. So I want to just do it in the timeline order, which means I might start with a sales pipeline, right? And I don't actually have a sales pipeline one here. Like I said, it's by no means exhaustive. I do have a client onboarding one, right? And an employee onboarding one, right? So you might add one to the list for yourself, as in a sales pipeline. What's my marketing process? How am I getting clients in? One of the reasons I didn't put one in here and didn't really think of it that much, I mean, of course I thought of it, but the reason I didn't bother to include it is because I know a lot of you get your clients strictly from word of mouth. So not much of a pipeline to outline there. It's sort of like, all right, when I get a referral, I'm good. Right. And pretty much you go very quickly from getting the referral to either they're not a good fit or we're into the onboarding process right away. Right. So if we're going in timeline order and we feel it's needed, we can do a sales pipeline type SOP that would outline our whole marketing process. And then after that would be client onboarding. Right. The last sort of criteria that I have suggested here, and there could be others, is which one can you get done the fastest, right? Sometimes just knocking one out quickly may help you get motivated to do more of these. This is purely psychological, the feeling of accomplishment, so you can keep moving forward. May be a very good basis for deciding how to prioritize this. So I can't give you the exact right answer and say this is the right answer, all the other answers are wrong. No such thing. You have to decide for yourself. One thing I think of is, I had a coach a number of years back, and every time I would meet with her and I was in between courses, I would say, all right, I've got this list of courses I want to do. I'm not really sure which one to do next. And her answer, very plain and simply, and this was classic, like what you would expect of a coach, it's what you kind of want from a coach, is she would ask me, well, which one's going to make you the most money? And that's how she wanted me to prioritize things, because it was really all based on optimizing and maximizing my cash flow. But in a couple of cases, I took that advice to heart, but after taking into consideration, there was actually at one time a course on my list that was actually probably going to make me the least amount of money, but it was also going to be the fastest, easiest course I could get done. So it may not bring me in as much money, but it'll bring money in quicker because I can get it done and produced a lot faster, right? So you have to think about what sort of value system is operating for you right now. And based on that, that's how ultimately you're going to prioritize. What's most important? Is one of these processes causing you, or lack of one of these processes, I should say, is it causing you a lot of pain? Maybe that's the way to choose, is whichever one of these is the one that not having it is causing you the most pain, right? So whichever you choose, you'll immediately experience reduced overwhelm. I can promise you that, by starting the process of knowing that you've set aside time and actually formed the habit of working on this. Okay. And we'll talk about forming that habit in a minute. But first, I want to give you a quick pick, a quick pick or a quick peek, whichever one. Oh, we got a raised hand. Does that mean we have a question or? So again, if you have a question, use the Q&A. It's difficult for me to pay attention to what I'm doing and to the queue here at the same time. So if you have a question, post it in the Q&A and Mary will let me know. If not, no worries. So I want to dive into the banking and credit card reconciliation one that I've done for you here. Okay, so all of these, except for these two, client and employee onboarding, I've pretty much spec'd out for you. So when you get the link to access these, you'll see they're pretty well written out. There are placeholders, like it's just a starting point. And again, I'll talk about that. But just so that you have a little bit of an idea of what I mean when I talk about very granular level of detail, right? The first thing we need to do, especially if it's a new client, is gather the statements, set up the system for how we're going to gather the statements. I use the example of Chase here, where I just went into my Chase account. And over here, I've got screenshots that I can send to my client. So they're right here built into my SOP, so that if the client says, I don't know how to do that, I can say, here it is. Here's how you delegate access to us. So we can, ultimately, that's the best way, is I want access so I can get in there and download my own statements. The worst thing, especially in terms of efficiency, is if I have a day set aside that I'm going to, download bank feeds and then reconcile the client's bank statement, I get there and I don't have the bank statement because the client hasn't sent it to me yet. Right. And then I message the client, and who knows if they'll get back to me with it quickly or not. Right. So I want to empower myself to get everything I can without having to need the client, to intervene and help me. Right. So I send this and I say, all right, here's screenshot one. Right. You're going to go to security. You're going to go to manage users. And then over here, we've got it. And this is why I love Notion, by the way, is these toggles are awesome because you can, as you can see, zip things up and expand them when you need them. All right, so once you click that, then you're under all users and you click add authorized users, follow the instructions to validate yourself, and boom, the rest of it's pretty straightforward, right? Go through the steps, take screenshots. Pro tip, you can Google how to delegate access and then insert the bank name here, and often you'll find the answer. But as I point out here, make sure that you double check, because a lot of banks, especially bigger ones, have different online interfaces depending on the type of account you have. So just make sure when you do that, that you can verify that the instructions you're getting are the right ones for the type of account your client has that you're wanting them to delegate access to you. Okay, and if you can't get the delegated access, so we need to allow for every option, right? Let's say we can't, for whatever reason. Either the bank doesn't do it or the client just refuses to do it, right? Let's zip some of this stuff up. Okay, then I love Bubble Up for this, right? So Bubble Up is an app. I've got videos on it. Um, I like it because it makes it really easy to create a folder that the client doesn't need to do a whole lot. There's not a lot of friction. The client can easily just download the PDF statements and drag them and drop them into a folder that you create in Bubble Up. Plus, a lot of people like Bubble Up because it's very visual. It's very pleasing to the eye to look at. So whatever app you use, make sure that you set up and share a single folder with the client, upload anything and everything you ever need. And by the way, while we're at it, make that decision here too. Uh, for me, the simpler I can make things for clients, the better. So while for us, it might be tempting to want to keep it real organized and say, well, here's a folder for bank statements and here's a folder for other things. That's most likely going to confuse clients, a lot of them anyway. And it's going to make them less likely or less excited about wanting to engage with your process and get you what you need. So in my experience, the easiest thing to do is give them one inbox folder for any time they need to get a document to me. That's where they do it, right? And Bubble Up works really well for this. So as an example, if I was using Bubble Up with my clients, I would have this kind of screenshot handy so that, again, I can share this with the client when the time comes and say, here's the instructions for how to upload files to me. This is where every file you ever need to get to me can go, right? And with Notion, I can double click these images for a closer, sort of higher res look at the image. Okay. Next thing, and this goes into, my process and how my sort of value system plays into my process, right? I need both formats. I always insist on both formats. I want PDF and CSV. The PDF is to reconcile. The CSV is in case you need to slice and dice the data to find a difference. Here's another pro tip. If need be, you can use ChatGPT to convert a PDF to a CSV file. We were having a conversation in one of my courses, I think it was the Bulletproof Bookkeeping Slack workspace, about the best tools. There are a million tools out there that do this, but I was curious, especially since a lot of you are maybe starting to play with ChatGPT. So I tried it. I took a Chase bank statement, and here's the prompt. I said, can you extract the transactions from this bank statement and provide them in a table format with the following columns: date, amount, name, description, suggested category, right? Why not? Might as well, maybe it'll save you some time to do that. Got the table right here. This was obviously a very short bank statement, right? It actually happened to be the first month that the account was open. So I liked it for a sample here because there was nothing really identifying in it. And then I asked it to produce it in this format. And I only knew to ask this because I'd seen it do this before, where this is essentially a CSV file. So I could click copy code and go into a spreadsheet and paste it, and then use your data text to columns command to instantly split it up into the columns. So I have a beautiful CSV file of the bank statement. Obviously, this is a few extra steps compared to just getting the CSV format from the bank, but it actually, once you understand the steps here, it takes all of like maybe 60 seconds to get a statement done this way. And then you've just got it, right? And then here, again, because it's an SOP and because we want it bulletproof, which means we want to be very granular, I'm even getting into the level of detail of how we organize storing the bank statements, right? So I use Google Drive. If you use, SharePoint, whatever you use, this folder structure is what counts, right? So I have a client folder somewhere within that banking that's missing from this picture, right? I'm kind of starting inside the banking folder. I have a folder for each bank account and then the year, and then each month within that. Okay. And this just makes it, as I say, ridiculously easy to find a statement later on when and if you need to. And keep in mind, most of the time when this is going to become operative is like a long time later, when you have no independent recollection, or wouldn't have an independent recollection of where you put a thing. So if you have a really solid system like this, you don't need to remember anything. You know exactly where to go to find it. And of course, for example, using Google Drive, Google Drive's web application has a beautiful search, which makes it really quick and easy to find anything. Right. And now we get to the part of the SOP where we're actually reconciling, right? Kind of in between this, I didn't bother to include it, but to make it bulletproof, I should, and here's what I do. I've seen people do what I would actually call overkill in terms of splitting up into different processes where, because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times your SOPs are going to be based on a certain frequency, such as weekly or monthly. In this case, I combine it all. As in, each week we're going to download the bank feeds, and then part of the decision tree is to look at my calendar and say, hey, has a month just ended? right? Look, it's August 5th. July just ended. We can probably pull the statement and reconcile it in about 30 seconds because we've been doing the bank feeds every week. So everything's already downloaded and coded. And now I just need to reconcile it, right? So that gets kind of built into my process. And here, once again, because I'm assuming that this SOP is for somebody that I've just hired off the streets, who worst case scenario has lied to me and has zero bookkeeping experience, or maybe that's what I want, right? There's an argument to be made for that. And so I want to hand them this SOP that walks them through step by step. Here's where you go. In other words, what this really does for me is it saves me the time of them asking me, hey, where do I go in QuickBooks Online to reconcile a bank statement, right? And how do I do it, right? And what are the rules, right? Difference must be zero, no exceptions, never plug a difference. This ensures the books are bulletproof. The second I plug a difference, I don't care if it's $1. For all I know, that's $100 one way and $99 another way. Or multiply that by 10. Now we're getting to material differences buried inside of what we assumed was a small inconsequential difference. I've seen it happen, right? So there's a certain value system also that's going to be infused into your SOP in terms of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. For me, it's never been acceptable to have a single, even penny difference in a reconciliation, especially because the math is simple. Beginning balance plus additions minus subtractions equals ending balance. If there's a difference, I can get that CSV file and slice and dice, sort and filter, and in less than 30 seconds, I can almost always find the difference. And I say almost always because sometimes it might take me 60 seconds, right? So this is kind of a good drill down on an illustration of what I mean when I say, granular, right? So if everything matched up in the bank feeds, this process should take no more than 5 minutes. Boom, we've got it illustrated here. Everything came in because it was downloaded, right? We know that because of the little green guys there. And so we pretty much just clicked select all and boom, done. Instant $0 difference. That's how most of my reconciliations go because of my detailed process leading up to this. Okay, and I see we've got some agreement about never plugging. So, all right, I'm just checking the chat real quick. So yeah, it looks like some people like my ChatGPT suggestion. And like I said, you can if you ask it for they call it a code box. If you ask it for a CSV code box, it will give you that CSV format, which you can just copy and paste. That's the prompt that you're going to be asking for. It's here in the SOPs, which again, you'll have access to later on. Okay. So I forgot to show you the slide first. I kind of went right in, but here it is about having a quick peek at the SOP, right? And so now we get to the exercise. And so those of you who got my email ahead of time, I sent it out on Saturday. Not all of you got it because either you registered later or my system just filters out certain people. It's nothing personal. It's just based on people who are likely to issue a spam report. It tries to cut down on that. So if you haven't really interacted with any of my emails, you may not have gotten it. I apologize for that. But bottom line, if you open up a tab in your browser and open up ChatGPT or whichever LLM you prefer, I want to give you an exercise to do based on the following, okay? So the first thing is I'm going to give you a prompt to use. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat. Okay, and then so you're going to copy and paste this into your LLM. And what I want you to do with this is, oops, I only sent that to hosts and panelists. Hold on, let me change that and send it to everyone. So what you're going to do is copy this, paste it into a prompt, but don't send it yet because you're going to see that there's brackets where you're meant to replace what's in brackets with whatever you actually want to do here. So the first line is, I need an outline for an SOP for an accounting or bookkeeping firm for, and then replace the brackets with name the SOP, right? I mentioned I didn't include a sales pipeline one. So use that because you're going to see, I have already got a lot of the details you'll need on these other SOPs, unless you just want to do it for yourself, which is totally acceptable. And I would say maybe even encouraged, right? But if you want to, use this to generate something you don't already have, then put this prompt in and replace the brackets here with, a sales pipeline SOP for an accounting or bookkeeping firm. To copy the prompt, just have to click in the chat. You should be able to click and drag. It may be a little tricky. Well, here's what I can do. I will just share the link to this page. All right, hold on. Oh, so some people are on like iPads and things. Sorry, I hadn't accounted for that. So here, I'm going to give you a link in the chat. So click this link. It's even if you don't have a Notion account, you should be able to access this page and copy and paste it from here. So let me know if you still have trouble. All right, and I'm going to give it a few minutes. Okay, so for those of you who can't copy, again, use that link I just provided and copy it directly out of Notion. You should be able to do that. The link doesn't have anything. I just clicked on it and it opened up fine. Oh, I see what happened. Okay, hold on a second. I know what happened. 1 second, and I'm going to ask you to refresh. And I promise you it'll be there. It's because that stuff on that page is linked to a source in Notion that is not shared. So for security reasons, it didn't give it to you. All right, so try and refresh. You should be able to see it now. And yes, this is all going out as a template. So you're all going to get access to this. All right, yeah, so people are confirming you can see it. I'll paste the link in again because it's buried further up. All right, so now that everybody can access it, I'll give you a couple minutes to, update the prompt, fill in the brackets. There's other places like down here. I need the process for developing the SOP. You're going to see this goes to the structure that I'm going to teach you after this in terms of what the SOP should look like. The quick answer is you want like a high level outline or summary first, and then you want the more detailed version. And I'll explain why a little bit later on, why that's important. Okay, so we need the process for developing and then put the SOP name in there from scratch, then maintaining the SOP, right? The title, outcomes, forecasts, so copy and paste this stuff. And this language is specifically if we were asking for a budgeting and forecasting, that's kind of the example I use. So again, you're going to want to revise this to fit whatever SOP you're actually asking for. If you're asking for a sales pipeline, then just update this with whatever is appropriate or leave it out and just say, then maintaining the sales pipeline, what have you. You might be surprised at how well ChatGPT kind of responds to this. Okay. So I'll give it another minute or two and let everybody do this and just kind of indicate in the chat, with a thumbs up or something. Let me know like when you're good, when you're ready, when you've updated the prompt and then sent it. So once you've, replaced the brackets with whatever fits, then send it and look at your answer and then come back into the chat here and let me know that you've got it. And now I'm looking at some of the questions in the Q&A. So some of these, it looks like we've answered already. Shannon says, she's been using ChatGPT like I recommended. It works great. Awesome. And once again, yes, we're going to give you all these templates. I'll if time allows, I'll peek into each of them for you, or at least a sampling of them so you can see there's a lot of work that I've done for you here. But I also want to make it clear that, as I'll explain later, what I'm giving you here is not by any means the finish line, it's the starting line. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So then do I have SOPs for each client? Yeah, potentially. I mean, a bank rec I can do pretty generically, but especially if there's something unique about that client and their bank or credit card accounts, if they have some weird bank account where I need extra instructions, then certainly what I would do is carbon copy my generic banking SOP and create one specific for that client. Absolutely. Which, by the way, is where it really helps to have a good system like Notion, where I can easily document things like that. Most project management systems aren't really good about knowledge management or just storing knowledge like that. Do I use a program to help create these? So again, ChatGPT for sure, saves a lot of time in terms of getting at least the structure in it. And then in a couple of minutes, I'm going to explain what we have to do beyond that. But yeah, and I store them. Notion is definitely the tool I recommend for storing them, storing the access to them. It's like the ultimate like company wiki tool. And your company wiki is typically where there would be a section in there for all of your SOPs, so that when you hire somebody, you say, here's our company wiki. Everything you need access to, including the SOPs that teach you how to go through every process we're going to ask you to perform, all in there. Don't ask my other employees about it until you've at least gone through that. And then if you still have questions, again, the idea is we're trying to save time. Because if I hire somebody new and I have another employee already working for me, and employee number two goes to employee number one and starts asking them, hey, what's the process here? And what are the rules for reconciling bank accounts? Now I have two people spending time on something that could be avoided by just having the instructions there. So that ultimately, even if that does happen, employee number one says to employee number two, hey, go check the SOP, go through it with that. Perfect world. If you've written your SOP really well, that'll be the end of any questions. But if they still have questions after, then of course, come and ask your questions. Even then, it might be that employee number one is able to say, hey, employee number two, here's where that is in the SOP. I get it. You're new. You might have missed it. But most importantly is we want to train ourselves and then anybody that we hire to in turn train any new people to rely heavily on those SOPs, which by the way, also speaks to the fact that they need to be reviewed and updated frequently. Let's see, do I use a program? So like I said, yes, I use Notion, and definitely I'm showing you right in this moment how I use ChatGPT to help. What recommendations do I have regarding organization of SOPs for client-specific work? So the answer to that is, again, Notion, but specifically, I have a system I've built out in Notion. If you go start a Notion account today, you're going to have a blank page. You're not going to be clear on what to do, but I can definitely show you. I don't have time today, but I can show you how I have it laid out in Notion so that I can track client specific stuff as well as, firm kind of global stuff. Okay, how do I create a table of contents so people can find everything? Can you, this is from somebody who's anonymous. Can you clarify what you mean about a table of contents? Like, do you mean a table of contents like that list I showed you with all the SOPs, or it's just it's a little vague of a question. So I think I need more context in order to give you an intelligent answer. I have not used Scribe how to capture some of this. We're going to talk in a few minutes about the tech stack, and I'm going to mention Scribe how and why I don't love it as an option, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. If it works for you, great. I'll tell you why I don't love it in a few minutes. Alexa says, I tried Perplexity to create SOP for restricted funds for a nonprofit. Too cool. Great. All right. I'm getting some reactions. Just wow. Right. I put in QuickBooks Online bank feeds and it gave me a great start. Beautiful. All right, good. Then, so I used my sample as a budgeting and forecasting template. And now I'm going to reveal, and now that I've given you all access to this page, you may have already gone ahead and looked yourself. So here's the reply I got, right? And again, I specifically trained ChatGPT to give it to me in this kind of format. So at first, maybe that's what the question of table of contents was about, is because it's literally right here in the reply. So I'll come back to that. So we got the table of contents. This is a high level outline. So this is a clue. When you start writing your own SOP, you want to start with something like this. This is the opposite of granular, right? It's, again, very high level. Yes, you can use Dynalist for SOPs, and Dynalist is great because, like Notion, it's like having bullet points on steroids. With Notion, you can do a lot more than Dynalist, but if you don't want to be bothered with Notion and you want to use Dynalist, by all means, Dynalist is a great way to outline SOPs, right? So we've got the table of contents. Here's developing the forecast from scratch, right? Maintaining the forecast, analyzing KPIs, because again, we're talking about budgeting and forecasting in this SOP. Running and analyzing the variance analysis, tools and resources, and the conclusion. And then we get into the detailed version. Introduction. Notice it has an objective. It has a scope, right? Very, very clearly defined stuff, specific, and in the best case, measurable, right? So now we get into the details, gathering the historical data, right? I revised some of this. This is not exactly how it came out of ChatGPT. I changed it because it gave me a generic response about just collecting data from the accounting system. Here, I'm assuming QuickBooks Online. In fact, it was based on that that I revised my prompt here So I gave it these assumptions. Assume the software uses QuickBooks Online. Assume the spreadsheet we use is Google Sheets. You could certainly change these to whatever fits if you're using Xero and if you're using Excel, right? So obviously you do you on this stuff. I'm just giving you an example as a very solid starting point, right? And so again, you have access to this and you're going to get access to all the SOPs like I promised. So I don't want to spend too much time going through every line item now. But again, I do want to reiterate that this is just the starting line, not the finish line, right? So, and to recap the steps now, and really, actually not even recap, because what really we've done, well, I've shown you all of this, I guess, at this point. So step one is take inventory, make a list of all your SOPs. Step two is outline the steps, high level. And step three, then we go into the outline, essentially, and we write the SOP. We go in and break down at the most granular possible level, every little detailed step that needs to be taken. And then step four is what's going to happen over time. In fact, whatever the frequency is that the process takes place on, if it's weekly, we're going to step through our SOP. Even if you think you know it well, I'm going to insist that you force yourself to do it with the SOP in front of you every time you do it for like the next year even. Right? Because what you'll find out is as you actually step through the process, you'll identify things like, oh, you know what? I didn't explain that, or I skipped over that because it's so inherent to me, but it's not going to be so inherent to the person I'm hiring who knows nothing about this process. Right. So if time allows, I'm going to show you a final product of an SOP I wrote for a client because I went through it and checked. There's nothing sort of revealing in terms of anything confidential by showing you that. But I'll show you what it looks like. And this is a very complex process that I did the SOP for, that I'll show you what it looks like in the final outcome. And it took me a full year before I perfected it. But what it accomplished for me on one thing among many is that it took a process that used to take an hour and a half, and now it takes us less than 30 minutes once a month. Okay. That's the kind of time you can save. That's not a joke, right? And it's not me exaggerating and trying to sell you on the idea. It's real. Okay. So again, this is a starting line, not the finish line. And what I want to really do is walk through each of these steps real quick in a little bit more detail, just to kind of review and speak a little bit more to the things I just said. All right. So I already shared step one with you. You saw how easy and straightforward it is to get started writing the Bulletproof SOPs. In fact, one thing you can do, and you might have thought of this by now, especially given the exercise you all just did, is, oh, that's funny. Somebody's ChatGPT posted an anonymous question. That's funny. Anyway, so one of the things you can do if you're really at a loss for where to start, and maybe you don't think my outline is great, then ask ChatGPT for a list of SOPs that you should start with and start outlining, right? Make that the first step, then go into each one and start asking it for help with that one. One thing I've started to do with ChatGPT is I've had it remember like a template. So like I said, for SOPs, it now knows my template where I want the high level outline and then the detailed version. And in the detailed version, you'll see in the examples I'm going to share with you that I asked it to put in placeholders in brackets. So it'll tell you, insert a screenshot here, insert a short video here. That's what I mean when I say it's just the starting line. It gives you a very, very solid start, but you still need to go in and expand on it and make it specific to how you do things and the things that you need to do. Okay. So again, all you have to do is make a list or swipe mine and order them in terms of priority, right? That's important, is put them in the right order. Or if you prefer, ask ChatGPT or whatever LLM. And then what do you do after that? Step two, we're going to outline the steps, right? So once you've done that, we've got a framework for the SOP. This is important because if you try to wing it and just write the steps, you'll likely get lost and frustrated and end up back where you started or worse, right? And you'll feel defeated, like this isn't going to work for me, right? So without a proper blueprint, you won't be able to build the foundation because you won't have the map of where you're going, right? Think about that. Imagine you're hiking somewhere that you're not familiar with and you don't have a map of where you need to get to, and for that matter, how to get back if you need to, right? So this is the same thing. This is like going into a wilderness and we need the map. We need to know what our endpoint looks like before we enter. Okay. And by the time I'm finished with an outline that ChatGPT provided me, there are often entire sections removed and much of it has been revised. Like I said, I'm going to review and revise. I'm going to take out things that I don't necessarily like. Not everything ChatGPT gives me is gospel, right? But like I said, this will give you a huge kickstart. Then step 3, we get into writing the SOP, right? So once step 2 is done, then we go back into the outline and start writing up the details. By the way, the best time to do this is really important. So if you're like busy taking notes or doing something, stop for a minute and pay attention with me, because I don't want anybody to miss this next comment. The best time to do this is while you are performing the process, for the same reason that you're going to review the process each time as you do it, because it's while you're performing the process that you're most likely to recognize where you get stuck, where you're like, wait a minute, I forgot what to do next. That in itself should be a trigger that there's something missing in your SOP. If you're going through the SOP and detailing the process and you're like, I'm not clear on what to do next, that's the most obvious trigger. That once you figure out what it is you do next, make sure you document that really, really well. The idea is never to have to remember anything, especially for processes that you're only going to do once a month, right? So this means you'll step through it much more slowly so that you can stop to document each step in granular detail, which means plan accordingly. Go into your calendar. If you normally, reserve 15 minutes to reconcile bank accounts because it's normally very quick and easy and you can do it in your sleep, remember, you're preparing this for somebody who can't do it in their sleep. So add 45 minutes, make it an hour instead of 15 minutes so that you can really take the time and not be stressed out about it. Because when you're stressed out that you need to get this done quickly, guess what? You're going to do a less than stellar job of this. This is the kind of thing where you really want to go into it feeling nice and relaxed and like you have plenty of time to step through it nice and slowly so you don't miss a step or you miss the least possible amount of steps. And for that matter, by the way, assume that you will miss something, which is why we have the review and revise process, right? It's perfectly normal. So don't beat yourself up when you do it next month and you realize, oh crap, I forgot this. And trust me, sometimes I'm doing it and I'm like, how could I possibly have forgotten that? And we're our own worst critic. So don't do that. Be nice to yourself. Okay. And the reason why this is important is that once this is done, anyone should be able to follow the steps and perform the tasks that make up this process, even if they've never done it before. All right, so Sandy has to run. Sorry. Yeah, I usually do these for like an hour to an hour and a half. So again, the recording will be available, just not immediately. Alexa says this is great for an aging memory too. Absolutely, right? I'm not that old, but I'm at an age where I'm like realizing I can't rely on my memory like I used to, right? I'm in my 50s. All right, so in this step, we're going to document every little step with text, screenshots, and short videos. Think about the last time you had to assemble a piece of IKEA furniture and how awful those instructions are. And the reason they're usually awful is they combine too much into a single step. And I'm sitting there looking at it going, well, wait a minute. Like, I feel like I'm missing something. It's like I have to go really slow to understand all the little things that they've effectively combined into a single instruction. Drives me crazy. I hate putting together stuff like that. It really, like, my anxiety levels go through the roof whenever I have to do something like that. My wife laughs at me because I'm like, I just want to hire a handyman to come here and put this crap together. So your job is to do the opposite here than the people, whoever writes the instructions for IKEA furniture, right? You really want to go slow and break it out into every little possible detail so that it's 100% crystal clear exactly what to do and in exactly what order and with exactly the right value system in place so that we are clear on what is acceptable versus what is not acceptable, right? The more detailed you are in breaking out every little step and making sure it is 1,000% clear what should be visible and what to click on or to enter, the closer you will be to cloning yourself when you hand someone this SOP. And remember, that is the goal, is to clone yourself. What do I used to add? I'll get to that question. Loom links are great. I'm going to mention that too. So yeah, I'll cover that. I just want to get through this part and then we're very close to the tech stack and all the stuff I use to make this happen, right? So I walked you through the bank reconciliation in detail. I had a note in my notes to do that again here, but I don't think there's any need. You've seen that, right? But note the one step in that reconciliation. Remember where I highlighted the fact that it has to zero out. It's not acceptable to have a single plug number, right? That's the value system. Okay, so built into this process are important value systems. This is what I meant by the most granular level of detail possible. The more granular you get, the closer you are to cloning yourself. I will probably keep repeating myself on that one for the remainder of our time here. And you almost wouldn't need to hire anybody with bookkeeping experience. I kind of alluded to that earlier. In theory, if you have a really well-written SOP, a lot of your bookkeeping processes, you could probably hand to somebody with no experience and they could just follow the steps, very easily. Okay. And then review and revise. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. As I mentioned, this is what you're going to do every time you perform the process, especially right after you've written it. You're going to use your own SOP to go through your own process every single time until you feel like you've exhausted any potential for anything that you might have missed. Right. And then you're still going to make a note to revisit it on some kind of a cadence to make sure that it's up to date, to make sure that things haven't changed that might impact that SOP. Okay. And now I'm ready to talk about the tech stack. So yes, Loom, definitely. Snagit, 100% what I use to make every single screenshot ever. And also I use Snagit, even though I have Camtasia, I use Snagit to record short 30-second videos sometimes to illustrate something that I want to include in the step. And you saw a Notion how I can use those toggles. It's beautiful because I can stick a video in one of those toggles so that it's not taking up all this space when you're looking at it. But when you need to, you can expand that and watch the 30 to 60-second video and see exactly, what that step looks like. A picture's worth 1,000 words. A video is probably worth 1,000,000, right? 1,000 times 1,000. You can also use Loom to shoot the short videos. This is my stuff. The only reason I don't love Loom for this, and I use Loom a lot now. I use it for quick videos when I want to demonstrate something and I want to share it in like Slack. I don't love Loom for this because, and this is just my stuff, when it comes to an SOP, I prefer everything be internal. And a Loom video lives on Loom's website, on their servers, and there may be sensitive information that I'm effectively putting on their server. Whereas if I record a video with Snagit, it renders locally on my machine. I drag that into Notion. And so I just feel like it's more sort of private than Loom, but Loom is a great choice if none of that stuff bothers you. So by all means, and you should use Loom anyway. It's got so many other great use cases. Okay. So again, you can easily, whether it's Loom or Snagit, you can create short videos. I also write these SOPs typically in Google, right? I use Google Docs. I like Google Docs. I definitely like Google Docs better than Word, especially because Google Docs lives in the cloud. So if at some point I want to collaborate with somebody in my organization and say, hey, you're going to now you now own the SOPs. You're going to make the updates. Very, very easy to share with Google Docs. It's possible with Microsoft Word, but a lot more friction in terms of trying to share things with people in Microsoft Word, right? So that's the whole secret, right? You follow these 4 steps, do it properly. And earlier I said that it was easy, but I also said that doesn't mean there isn't work to be done. It just means you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out how to do it. I showed you the secret for getting it done really fast, right? Using ChatGPT to help you. And by the way, like I said, that's just the starting line. You can continue using ChatGPT to iterate more deeply with it. By all means, I would encourage you in the bigger picture. I would encourage you to just play with it and use it. Somebody asked exactly which ChatGPT I'm using. I'm using Chat. So there's only one ChatGPT tool. Okay, so ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI. So ChatGPT is OpenAI's LLM. Claude is something else. Claude is actually what Notion uses for its AI. And what else? That's it. And then there's others, that you might like. Perplexity, I know a lot of people like. Perplexity will give you links. What do you call it? It'll give you links to sources that it's referenced basically and giving you its answer. Some people like it for that reason. All right. I know it's a little overtime, so I want to kind of power through the rest of this. Sherry says, I had the prompt include videos on how to do any step available by a link, and it gave me videos per step it could find. Interesting. So yeah, chatgpt.com. So, there's different LLMs. Microsoft's LLM is Copilot. Although Microsoft also has a big stake in OpenAI. So anyway, let's move on. So that's the whole secret. I mentioned earlier about creating the habit, right? What I want to suggest here, if you're getting started writing SOPs, the best way to do it is you want to really have a block of time. Like I said, you want to be kind of relaxed when you're doing this. You don't want to be stressed or rushed. So what I highly recommend is schedule the time. Do it on a Friday. Right? And create the habit by saying every week on Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., I'm going to give myself 2 hours a week to work on this. That's better than, I think what stops us from doing this kind of thing a lot and from making us believe that we just don't have time to do it because we're too busy doing all the work is we somehow think we have to do the whole thing at once. There's no way you're going to do this all at once. So form a habit, make it a weekly thing. Make it a daily thing. You might find you enjoy this. I actually enjoy it very much. I love doing this kind of stuff. It's just something that gives me a deep sense of satisfaction about really laying out the instructions and feeling a sense of accomplishment, as in this is going to make it really easy for people to understand what to do, and it's going to save time, right? So start out with a weekly appointment with yourself on Fridays or whatever day you like best, and just know that you have that time set aside. That means you shut down Slack, Microsoft Teams, anything that can disrupt you with a notification for that period of time. Close your email, just get focused for 2 hours on getting started developing these SOPs. And little by little, it will start to come together, right? So the question, does this really work? I actually already answered that question for you. I kind of gave you the very short version of the case study where I have a client who I had this very complex process with that used to take us an hour and a half. It now takes us less than 30 minutes each month, right? And that's the thing with monthly, it's harder to remember every little step. So I said if time allows, technically it doesn't, but let me see if I can just share this with you super fast. And I need to back up. And of course, I completely lost my place. So bear with me 1 second here because I forgot to control click to open it up in a new tab. Wow. It's amazing to me how many notes I wrote for this today. All right. So I'll just give you like the quick kind of bird's eye view of what this looks like. So this is a company I work with called P-Link. So after it's all said and done, I get this stuff into a table. This is a company that I've designed a very, very complex network of databases in Airtable that all kind of speak to one another, right? So the first step is I need to open the bases. Here's their main database, and then they have coaches. I'm not going to expand this one because it has names in it, but basically what's inside here is each coach's sort of satellite database that syncs back to the main database. So the first thing I want to do when I start the process each month is just get all the things open in separate tabs so I have access to it at my fingertips. And then here are the steps. Over here, I show who it's performed by. A lot of it are me. Karina, who works for them, is their finance person. So I just identify who does what in terms of the generic roles as well as the individuals, right? If you're writing the SOP and you don't know who is actually going to fill that role, then just use the generic role description for that, right? And then I've got some tags here to help me organize it a little bit further, right? And in here, you can see where there's like a dark arrow here. That means there's sort of sub items, right? And so if I open this, there's more detailed instructions. Here's a short video that I did with Snagit. And of course, the more detailed outline of the steps. So this is just a quick glance at what it kind of looks like potentially when you have a really complex one that's done. Okay. So now I want to share with you, as I mentioned earlier, that this is the kind of stuff we do all the time in 97 and up. So Sherry says, this is awesome. I asked for a checklist to be made for the SOP and it did it. Yep. So I love this. This is exactly what I was hoping you would all take away from this, is the sort of empowerment to start playing with ChatGPT as a very significant aid in helping you do this. I still see a hand up. I don't know if that's from earlier. Okay. So this stuff is the stuff we do all the time in 97 and up. In fact, recently I've been doing a lot of this kind of ChatGPT stuff along these lines and also along other similar kind of related lines. And it's been sort of mind-blowing, even for me, honestly, because I'm learning myself as I go with this stuff. And the more I play, the more ideas I get, the more I figure out how to do things. So 97 and up is a program, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, that I've had going for many, many years. I've got years and years of recordings of calls that you get access to when you join, as well as all the recent ones that we've done, any call ever. I recently consolidated it all because I've been using Notion more and more for all this kind of stuff. So all the calls, the whole history is now in a single database, easily searched for a particular topic. You can search for SOPs. You'll see a whole series I did at the beginning of this year on SOPs, and I've learned so much more about this, and especially using ChatGPT, that we're going to have another series on SOPs that are just based on, look, this is organic, it's flowing. I'm constantly learning and evolving and getting better and better. So, I wanted to share with you that, there's so much you can do as far as what I've given you today, but I wanted to let you know that you have an opportunity to go a lot deeper into this with me, and I'll talk about that real quick. I've got people in 97 and up. Some of you may know some of these people who have worked with me for quite a number of years, right? Now I'll just quickly get through this. This is what they call the social proof. I'm supposed to prove to you that people really do like my work. Um, Daniel actually joined in May of 2023. This was a comment he wrote to me specifically about 97 and up as of the beginning of this year, right? Here's a chat from inside 97 up Slack workspace where somebody was asking me for help with a sales tax thing. And you can see, her reaction. This is the kind of stuff that I live for. This is me living for the potential of what I can help all of you do when it comes to stuff like this. Alexa, thank you for the kind words, right? I love this remark. Of course, it made me feel good. Your content and demeanor is by far one of the best I've come across. And this is my second and most fitting business I've had with coaches and such, right? So I can share the stuff like this with you. This one's great. This one I love because she was working for Intuit, I assume for QuickBooks Live. And she wrote me this reply to one of my weekly emails saying that she's now reducing her hours with Intuit because I helped motivate her to build her own thing, which is great. There's more Slack conversations where Rachel is like the most prolific. Prolific's not the right word. She refers the most people to 97 and up for me. She's amazing. Pretty soon it's just going to be her community and me serving it. Here's an email somebody from Intuit sent a few years back to long story short, they had given this company a prize, as in free training that Intuit paid for. So there's an email he sent to that person who sort of won the prize, and just describing me. This is somebody from Intuit describing me as quote, known across the US as one of the top QuickBooks and accounting bookkeeping professionals. Again, makes me feel good. John is from BotKeeper. He recently presented to us at 97 and up. And this was his comments about our group. Especially, I liked what he said here. Your group had a great energy and sense of humor that is not always found in the accounting world. That makes me feel really good because that's exactly what I'm striving for. This one I thought was hilarious. Crystal is getting ready to retire, but in one of my recent course promotions, she wrote me this saying that even though she has zero interest in doing this, and because she's retiring, she's certainly not about to take on a new niche. But she said that the buzz I was creating was still making it difficult for her to resist the temptation to want to join, just to be sort of part of it. So, of course, that makes me feel good. All right, let's get past that. Disclaimer, as far as some people will look at something like this and say, oh, well, Seth, you've been doing this for so long. Of course, it's easy for you. Guess what? It's not that easy for me. The difference is I took action and I got the results, right? I have the same problems as you in terms of getting focused. And by the way, another huge benefit of writing and relying on SOPs is that it makes all the difference in staying focused. The process I described above with my client is a complex one, right? The one that I have the network of databases for. That's why it took a year to perfect. Most of yours will take a lot less time. The more frequent the process is performed, the faster you'll get it done to where you feel like you've ironed out all the wrinkles, right? So most of yours will take a lot less time, but I do want you to understand and be willing to put in the work so that you can experience the benefits. And if you expect this to be a quick and simple process, you'll be disappointed. Part of the reason why I'm saying set aside a weekly time, really get focused on this. And if you can spare it, do it daily. Spend an hour a day. Imagine an hour a day would be 5 hours a week, assuming Monday through Friday, as opposed to 2 hours a week if you just do a little 2 hour, right? Either way, you figure out what works for you. But the point is to create a cadence, a habit where every day or week at a specific time, this is what you're working on and nothing else. You turn off anything that can disrupt you with a notification and get focused on just this. You'll probably find that you really enjoy that time, not just because of the work you're doing in it, but also because it's almost like a meditation, like you're really getting focused on one thing. I find that when I'm working on things like this, and when I work on them, in that environment, that's when I get into flow. And flow is the ultimate state of being in the moment. And it's when we are literally at our happiest, right? Because we're not thinking about anything in tomorrow or yesterday. We're truly, truly in the moment. Now imagine having your system so dialed in that deadlines are never an issue. Imagine having capacity so that you're never doing things at the last minute. You're actually doing them at the first minute, right? And now it's more a question of what do you feel like working on today? Because you have all the time in the world. That's literally what I've gotten to experience the more I've done this kind of stuff, right? So like you, I get really frustrated with lack of clarity on systems and processes. I get fed up with being stressed out because I know something is taking much longer than it should. By the way, that's a trigger for either I need an SOP or I need a better one, right? If I feel like something's taking longer than it should. And I get scared of falling behind and losing money because I'm worried if I don't stay focused and keep up, somebody's going to get frustrated with me and go somewhere else, right? So we all want to free up time and focus on how to scale our business, take time off when we want to, and not be stressed out all the time without having to outsource our work to an expensive and unreliable service, right? I see you, right? And it was probably a year or so ago when I asked in my Facebook group what most people needed help with. And the answer was universal. It was not one deviation. Everyone said in one form or another that they needed to clone themselves so they could get out of their own way, get out of the trenches and grow their business. Right. But this presentation is not about what I see. It's honestly about what you do next. And the way I see it, you've got three choices right now. Right. You can leave this presentation and do nothing. Right. Not even give it a shot. Say, all right, that was cool, but it's not for me. Right. The second choice, you can take the information I gave you and try and implement by yourself. I can see already a lot of you from the chat are getting results right away, which again was my goal. And the third choice is you can follow a step-by-step process and look over my shoulders as I help you implement all of this, making sure that everything is done correctly, saving you time and going deeper into every step we talked about today. So if you're a shortcut type of person and want to go with the third option, if you want a shortcut, then I've got this special one-time offer that I'm doing. I did something similar a little over a year ago. That guy Daniel, whose testimonial you saw, actually took advantage of it along with some others. I don't normally offer an option to pay for a whole year of 97 and up front. Again, I've done it one other time over a year ago, right? But that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to give you an option. I'm going to give you two options. And by the way, any existing members of 97 Up who are on a monthly, feel free to cancel and take advantage of this if you want to do it to save some money. And then if you do, just let us know. Email Mary, just email hello or Mary at Nerd Enterprises. Let her know that you've signed up for the 1 year. And what we'll do is we'll refund you your most recent month so that you're not kind of overlapping, right? So that option exists for anybody who wants to take advantage of this. So basically, this is the offer. I will put the link in the chat for you if you want to take advantage of it. And so you have two options. You can sign up for a year. That'll save you a little more money. Or you can sign up for monthly at $147 a month. Normally it's $197 per month. So there's the link. If you're not sure, just click the link, bookmark it, whatever, come back to it later. No pressure. I'm going to leave this offer up and available for, I don't know, honestly, probably a week or something, right? Just because I'm not about trying to pressure people into doing something unless you're absolutely certain it's something you want to do, right? And just real quick, in case you're wondering, there are, I think it's more than this by now, but at last count, there were 11 courses that were included with 97 and up. I also always offer deep discounts on any like Bulletproof courses that I do, Bulletproof Notion. 97 Up members always get a substantial discount, especially when I launch the courses, but even after that. I think I mentioned this earlier. We do 2 live weekly calls where you can get any questions answered. You can even request topics, and I leave space available so that if you request a topic, I can get it on the calendar usually within a week or two. Right. And this way you can get, so if you're working on your SOPs and you're like, hey, can we do a deep dive on the sales pipeline SOP and how you might work with ChatGPT to get more and more detailed? Great. There's a form you fill out to request a call topic and I get notified and boom, we'll get that on the calendar right away. And I'll be honest with you, I don't get a lot of requests. So it's very likely if you join and use it, that your topic will get on the calendar very soon. Now that I said that, I'm probably going to get overwhelmed with requests. No, it's fine. That's fine. I will always do everything I can to work with you. My goal there is to make sure that you have everything you need to be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. I'm truly, truly committed to your success. Okay, we've got an active Slack community. You saw some screenshots with, at this point, I know it's well over 100 members. I forget the exact number. So you can get in there. You get direct access to me, right? And I do love helping people. Like I said, deep discounts on major courses. And this is where you can take your SOPs and everything else you need to manage your firm to the next level with me, like I said, looking over your shoulder and giving you help. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I hope that you all got a lot of value out of this. I always worry that these kind of things are, like there's not a lot of value I can pack into a short period of time, but I'm looking at the comments. I see the hearts showing up on my screen. Thank you for making me feel good. I appreciate it. And I'm not hard to find for those of you who may not know me as well. So if you have questions by way of follow-up, find me, right? Ping me. If you email me, you'll get an autoresponder that says, don't email me, but you'll also get instructions to email hello@nerdenterprises. Mary will get those. You can even email Mary directly at Mary@Nerd Enterprise. It's actually Mary.Estrada. Just email hello@Nerd Enterprises. We both get those. And that way Mary can respond to you. And this way, if you have any questions, we can get them answered. And I have a free Slack workspace called Nerd's Guide to the Galaxy. So you can get in there too. It's pretty quiet in there. So again, opportunity, get in there, ask your questions there if you're not ready to sign up for 97 and up. One way or another, I'm going to find a way to help you. That's the bottom line. So anyway, I will stick around in case anybody has any more questions. Oops, looks like we do have a couple more in the Q&A. Where'd you go, Q&A? There it is. Is 97 and up good for newer bookkeepers? I would say definitely. We have every imaginable range of experience in there. I have people who are just starting, don't even have a single client yet. And then I have people who've been CPAs and enrolled agents for years and have done it for years. And, you know, they all tell me that they get value out of it in a different way. And typically what happens is because I believe it's because of the sort of birds of a feather concept that I've employed in terms of how I built this community. So I give a lot away and that translates, and you'll see a lot of people with the experience in there are very, very happy to jump in and help those of you who are less experienced. I see that happening all the time. It makes me very happy and proud. So I would say, you know, for sure, it's for every range of experience. If you are not sure, do the monthly, then it's month to month. You can always cancel. And if you do a month and decide you want a year, the offer will stand. Just let me know, hey, I did a month and I want to actually do a year, and I will happily give you the option to do that, after 1 month. So let me just mark that answered. Do I use Notion in replacement of? Yes. What I've done with Notion, it's one of my Bulletproof courses, is I have what I call the Bulletproof Notion operating system. I have built an app essentially using Notion, which I now have a course that teaches others and gives you all the templates that I built. So it gives you the templates and teaches you how to use it. It's got its own Slack workspace. And there's a whole process around doing project management, or what I prefer to call work management, because not everything's a project. And then really the last version of it that it evolved to is where I started calling it the operating system, because you're truly managing everything from one place, not just your work, but things like bookmarks, notes, and I'm constantly evolving with it. And it's all built in a system of relational databases. So I can create a project. I can assign bookmarks that I need at my fingertips when I'm working on that project. I can create notes that are specific to that project. The project, of course, lives inside of a client, right? And so it's all these relational databases that I've done the work to build it for you. So you don't have to understand any of that technical stuff. You just have to learn how to use it. And I've got a course and a Slack workspace that's there for support. So that is not included with 97 and up. But as I said, if you join 97 and up, I give you a nice little discount if you're interested in that program. So the quick answer to the question is yes, it is for me a replacement of any project management system. Keeper, some people still will want to use, because Keeper is really good for the monthly closing process. And it's integrated with QuickBooks Online. Notion is not integrated with QuickBooks Online. So I know we have some people in Bulletproof Notion who actually do still use Keeper, but I definitely wouldn't expect you would continue using something like ClickUp. In fact, ClickUp was what I left in favor of Notion little by little. How was my experience with the free version of Notion? It was fine. I mean, I could do a lot of what I wanted to with the free version. In the end, it didn't take much, where I was like, for what I wanted to be able to do that required the paid version, and really what that comes down to is collaboration with others. It was worth it to me. I think it was like $80 a year for the pro plan. And I was, I had no problem, spending that money for Notion. It was so worth it. So worth it. But what I always tell people with any app is use the free version until you run into the friction that requires you to upgrade in order to get what you want. And even then decide, do I really want it? Do I want to spend the money to get that thing? Or do I want to figure out how to work without it? How to work around it, kind of thing, right? So that's the story. I know people have to go, so take care. I will see you all around, and I'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll just kind of close up here. So if you still have any questions that went unanswered, just like I said, email us or use a Slack workspace, especially those of you who are already in a Slack workspace, then use that. Reach out to me. Keep me company.
All right, I'm gonna sign off. It looks like everything's kind of quieting down here.